G'day, it's Wayne Burton here with Dr Steve Marcroft from Marcroft Grains Pathology, and we're at the Streatham NVT site, and we're looking at actually, this is actually DG Bidgie, a Group H variety that we've developed in a spring background. Now, Group H's have been around for a while, Steve, haven't they, as far as that goes? We've actually seen the winter types introduced probably 5 or 6 years ago or more, with some of the Group H resistance. So we've seen Group H, but not in a spring type. So how have you seen the resistance to date?
Yeah, look, the Group H is really exciting. It's a RLM7 resistance out of Europe. It's, as Wayne just said, it was introduced in Australia through the winter types from Europe, and now it's been developed into a spring type. So the suggestion is that at the moment it's been grown in that really high rainfall zone on some sort of a limited basis, whereas now there's a potential for it to get grown on a much larger basis. So the Group H RLM7's brand new resistance gene, and you have a look at this plot here compared to the one we were just looking at a minute ago. This one is totally clean and you won't see any disease. So this is a fantastic example of a new major gene that the pathogen hasn't seen before, and it's totally effective. So these plants are totally immune to blackleg at the moment. You won't find any disease here. The question is how long that resistance lasts and how long does it take for the pathogen to overcome, because it's only one single gene that has to be overcome. So that's what we see. And look, we have got some indications that resistance has already been overcome in some of our high grain and graze type situations. We put out a warning last year from the Hamilton region because we found quite a bit of disease in it. But you can see here where we're at Streatham, there's no disease at all. And that'll be the case for the vast majority of Australia over the next few years, that we've got a brand new resistance gene, a brand new group, and it will be immune to blackleg, which means it won't get crown canker and it won't get upper canopy and it won't even get any pod infection, which is great. The question with this is, as it becomes more popular, it will get overcome. We know that's happened to every other major gene, and then those cultivars will have to rely on their quantitative resistance. And we won't know what that quantitative resistance is until this gets overcome, but we'll find out. And that's one of the reasons we have these monitoring sites, so that hopefully we can find this out before the growers do, and then provide the growers with the information before it happens to their paddocks.
So how do we manage that resistance breakdown, Steve? How do you think we go about managing that resistance from an industry perspective?
Well, the most effective way is just to put it into a crap cultivar which no one grows, but if it's a successful cultivar and it gets grown on a wide scale, we'll see that resistance being overcome. But the great thing is that when we do have a new resistance gene like this, it gives us much more options. So if you have been growing a Group B, for instance, and you're getting disease in your Group B, you can switch to this and it's a completely different resistance gene. It's a bit like switching chemicals, whatever. You'll get that great new effect. So it gives us another rotation tool. If you're growing a Group A or a Group B or a BF or whatever, you can switch into one of these and have low disease pressure. So really, the most ideal way is to rotate these things in space and time, so that you have a reasonable rotation length between cultivars and you're switching resistance groups. However, really what I think we're seeing these days is most agronomists are getting out, they're monitoring their paddocks, and if it's doing well, they continue to grow it. And if they're starting to see disease, by the old-fashioned second hairs, cut them open, have a look, you see that disease starting to increase, that's when you should probably start changing to a different resistance group, or going to a fungicide strategy, or making sure that your cultivar's got good quantitative resistance. So it's just a matter of switching before you start seeing that that death in the plants.
Yeah. So what about protecting with a seed treatment earlier on? Would you be recommending using one of the newer SDHI seed treatments if growing this new Group H, as far as that goes?
That's a really good question, Wayne. The jury's still out on that. There is this theory that if, for instance, you're growing using the Group H, which is undefeated by the pathogen, and combining it with an undefeated new fungicide like an SDHI, the pathogen has to overcome two completely different modes of action to be able to attack that plant. So there's this theory that they could both protect each other. We've actually got an investment with Syngenta at the moment trying to look at some of those things, Dr. Angela Vanderwell is working on. So look, time will tell whether that actually is true, but that's certainly one of the theories.
Yeah. So you would recommend coming out using one of the SDHI seed treatments?
Look, I'm probably sitting on the fence at the moment. I don't have enough knowledge to say with that, but there's certainly the theories that could help, prolong the
So what about
resistance.
protecting it with, we do start to see, protecting it with foliar treatments? Will that prolong the resistance breakdown?
I guess the thing at this stage, what we do know is that if you do put a SCHI seed treatment on something like Group H, that when the resistance does overcome, it's great insurance.
Yeah.
So that you'll get a lot of protection still from that fungicide, even when the Group H gets overcome. So if it did get overcome and you didn't know that it had, you would have that insurance, I guess, from the fungicide. That's the way I would look at it.
Yeah.
But until the resistance is overcome,
Yeah.
you won't get any benefit from the fungicide.
So, obviously your first point was to rotate. So rotating is the best strategy as far as that goes, rotating different groups. So if you've been on Group B, growing a Group H will give you benefit from that perspective. As far as that goes, what about the resistance break, not the fungicide as far as SDHI? How long do you think the pressure on that? Because we can break the resistance in the plant, we know we can do that. What about the SDHI fungicides? How long do you think they'll have?
Yeah, the SDHI fungicide, so we've been doing, or Angela's been doing surveys and work on fungicide resistance in the DMIs,
Yeah.
3-year-old jockeys, Pizarros, etc. And we know that tolerance, I guess, has developed in the pathogen to those fungicides. But to be honest, to date, we haven't really seen the field failure of those fungicides. So we know that it's there, but it's still in a low frequency.
Yeah.
We also know with those DMIs, it's a stepwise, so it keeps gradually getting worse and worse over a number of different generations. It doesn't go from all or nothing.
Yeah.
However, the overseas experience has certainly been that the SDHIs are much more like a major gene. They're either effective or they're not.
Yeah.
So you're going to have great control, and we do get brilliant control of the SDHIs, or it may be the case that we lose that completely.
Yeah.
So I guess that's the risk with the SDHIs. But look, time will tell. So really our suggestions at the moment is that you can use an SDHI, one shot as an SDHI for a crown canker, whether that's a seed treatment or an early foliar to control your crown canker, and then you can use another SDHI, that 20-30% bloom stage to control the upper canopy stage. But we don't want 2 applications late or 2 applications early, because we think that's putting selection pressure on. So 1 application for crown and 1 application for upper canopy we think is a fairly reasonable strategy.
Yeah, and obviously these first cultivars in the TTOPs that we have, like DG, Bidgie and Murray, and new ones coming through, we've just got 1 single gene, but with our TrueFlex we've actually got a stack, so we've got an ACH. How effective is that going to be? That resistance going to be a bit more robust, having sort of more stacked genes in the resistance, and will that be a better strategy moving forward as far as that goes?
Well, one of the great things of saying about having your resistance genes is it gives you opportunities to do with those new stacks as well. So we saw that in the past where we had a straight Group A cultivar, that got overcome, so you can swap it and you become an AD cultivar, that gets overcome, then you can add another one, ABD cultivar, so you can actually, all those different combinations, you now can put H into all of those combinations and make them all become resistant again, because the pathogen has to overcome the new combination. So it can overcome, say, the A, and it can also overcome the H, and you can put them together and that new combination is effective again, and then the pathogen has to overcome that combination. So it will keep overcoming those combinations, but it means that we're just pushing it out further and further and further and give ourselves more and more options. So
like we saw with the Group D resistance, which was Sylvestris resistance, that has actually been very useful from an industry perspective, even after it was broken down. So we'll see.
Exactly
I think the Group H is going to add value from an industry
It's just more tools in the toolbox, more combinations, more options, and like I said, it will mean that we'll see a whole range of cultivars coming through with major gene resistance, which is effective, and they don't get disease at all. And then, as you said, you can keep coming up with new combinations to keep recreating that over a period of time.
Yeah. Oh, well, I think that's nearly a wrap. So I just wanted to say thanks to Steve. I've worked with Steve for the last 3 decades or more, and a great friend, and he's got a great team around him and doing some great work on blackleg, and we're very lucky from an industry perspective to have him here. So thanks, Steve, for your time today, and thanks for your continued work and support with on new sources of resistance, and we at Nutrien are looking at developing and releasing that to industry. So thanks, mate.
Great, Wayne.
Yeah,
we'll see you in 30 years.